Hi, it's Andy with West Valley 411. I'm doing a preview to this video because I wanted to show you the final product after we finished. But the purpose of the video is to replace the entire door threshold due to wood rot and replace the stucco molding all the way around, including caulking and painting. And we're going to show you tips, mistakes, where to get supplies and materials, and how to take everything apart and how to put it back together. So let me grab the camera and let me show you what we got. Okay, so this is the pressure treated lumber that's been painted that's underneath the threshold. Normally there's a flashing that goes underneath it, and you can see the gap between the bottom of the jamb to the threshold, so there's no water that is in contact with the material there, so hopefully we won't get any more wood rot. Also, we patched the concrete here, which is part of the foundation footing, and then everything got we got caulking in here, caulking here, painted over the stucco, and then we're going to go all the way up to the top. You can see the corner got 45-degree angles there, and we replaced it with the original door molding there. So that's what we're up for. Please watch. Hi, it's Andy with West Valley 411. This is part 2 of a video where we are repairing wood rot in a exterior garage door jamb. And just a quick recap, came out and noticed that there was some clear deterioration and some of the in the jamb here, and we ended up cutting out the rotted wood up to the point where it's pretty clean on both sides of the jamb. That's the right side, and this is the left side over here, and it took a several cuts with a multi-tool to get out the bad wood. You'll notice here that we had to scrape and sand and file down some of the wood on this 4x4 here. That's a structural support, and that came out really nice. I was real fortunate that it was only kind of superficial at that point, but it's been sanded and scraped, and here's a hole where there was a wood screw that was attaching part of the jamb to the 4x4. Now, I did notice that the hinge on this door, the screw only goes to a depth of equal to sort of what's in the jamb itself. It did not go all the way into the to the structural support. So I've got a knife in here that's acting as a bit of a shim, and you'll see as this door opens and closes, the width of that gap increases. So I'm going to have to shim that up and then put another shim here. So we cut all the bad wood out, including the molding here that goes up against the stucco. And the dilemma at the time was, how am I going to find a replacement for these moldings? But to my delight, we went to Home Depot and found a jamb that is in the same shape as the existing jamb. It's got the wider base here. It's got the portion that the door closes up against, and it's got the molding. We're not going to need the door sealant molding here because we're going to use the old one that's on the existing jamb. But I was pleasantly surprised. It's about 30 bucks. There were a couple of different brands at the store. The one that was not wrapped in cello here was warped and distorted and twisted, and I went through about 15 of them and couldn't find one good one. So this one is even better. I am going to have to trim it here on the right because it's a little wider than the existing piece. So you can see the difference here for for my door, but that's not really that big of a deal. That'll be pretty easy. So let me show you the progress so far. We took out the 2x4 as a base, and I noted on the last on part 1 of the video that some of these nails were rusted. Rather than replace them because they're recessed into the poured concrete there, I just used a rotary tool to get off the rust, and then I spray painted them. All I had was yellow. It was a pretty wide nozzle and made a bit of a mess, but a lot of that paint probably got down into the gap here and sealed them off. So we're going to replace that 2x4 pressure treated lumber with a 2x6 because the 2x4 had an add-on to it, which is really probably just fur, and this is just falling apart. So we'll just extend it with the 2x6. You can see how bad that wood was rotted. This pressure treated portion will extend out and provide one-piece support for the sill. So that's where we are, point in time. I am going to do some filling of the portion we sanded on both sides with some wood Bondo. This stuff is great. You basically scoop it out. It's kind of a thick milkshake consistency. You squeeze out a line of this hardener or activator, and then you have about 30 seconds to work with it to put it on top of, you know, the holes and the gaps, and then flatten it out, and then it'll harden it up and you can sand it. So we'll get started on that. I was really pleasantly surprised. This pressure treated piece here that's up on the concrete footing wasn't damaged at all. So there is a benefit to this pressure treated wood. I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet with this this house wrap here. You can't really buy small amounts at any store, and when I priced a roll, it was $60 for, I don't know, about must have been about 30 feet. So I may just use a plastic bag and tuck it inside the existing portion and wrap it around so that doesn't get wet. And of course we're going to seal. We'll scrape down this existing wood here. We'll seal it up really nicely with silicone, and then you know, paint it. So that's where we are, point in time, and I'll continue this section as we go. All right, Bondo's been placed over the damaged wood on this side, so we'll shape that, and then we'll add some shims before we put the jamb on. And we also put some concrete patch on the right side so that that is flush and keeps the bugs out, and gives us a flat surface to adhere the jamb. Just wanted to point out, I used a fast setting cement patch. It's 1 part water to 4 parts dry material. So mix that up real good. Just determine how long you need to wait until you apply it, because on these vertical applications, you know, you don't want it just to kind of drool off and you know, not stay in place. All right, let's take a look at the jamb itself. As I mentioned, you really have to prep the wood before you prime and paint and put weather stripping on. So what I used is the paint scraper that looks like this. You really have to make sure that your paint scraper is sharp, and I'll post a link to a video on keeping your scraper sharp. Just use metal file like this at the appropriate angle, because that's really key to getting all the paint off. So I just wanted you to see there are some damaged areas here that we will fill, and before we seal, prime, and paint. I went all the way up on this side of the jamb. See if you can get a good view of that. It's a little tough to do these horizontal surfaces because you're kind of going left to right over your head. And then on this side you can really see how bad the wood is and how damaged it is. Let's go further down. You know, that's not something that you can just paint over. That's got to be scraped thoroughly and patched and so forth. So we'll probably use Bondo in the really bad places. So we'll finish that and then come back. Also, I just wanted to point out this threshold is in pretty bad shape. So we're going to sand that and use a semi-gloss paint to cover that, just to give it, to freshen it up a little bit. And you know what? It's not perfectly square. It's bent a little bit. Just kind of looking at the bottom, you know, just from people stepping on it, and it's going to be really tough to bend back. I don't know if I'm going to be able to find a replacement for that, so may just use it as is. But we'll clean it up and freshen it up so that when it's installed, everything will look nice. All right, the project is going a little sideways right now because I'm in a jam with the jam. Actually, when you look at this stucco molding, I started to dig out these areas here that had the crown staples on them, and as you can see, just about all of them were rusted. So when I dug it out, I discovered that this cheap wood is, you know, more rotted than I thought. So I ended up ripping out all of the stucco molding all the way around, so that 2 hours of scraping paint off was kind of wasted. But I did discover where the wax paper here is placed all the way up against the jamb here. So let me peel this back a little bit. You can see that nice fresh wood, and so we'll make an effort to replace that. But I am going to Bondo the balance of the jamb and return that to its natural wearability as much as possible. We'll fill up these screw holes, and now I have it replaced, or will replace it, with this new stucco molding. They only painted it on 3 sides. I guess this side here goes up against the other wood, but I'm going to paint that nonetheless. But you can see the sections that they put together with these little finger joints, because here is a portion, then you go up a foot, there's another portion, and you can't really see the finger joints there, and then you go up, you know, another portion, and you know, so that's just how they do it at the lumber mill, I guess. This pine comes in smaller sections, and they just glue them together. You can see the finger joint on the existing portion of the jamb. I guess they do it there as well. So all right, we'll get that take a look at it. This is the header portion that was up top, but you can see a little bit more wear than I had expected, and I don't have a staple gun for that, so I may just end up using small nails, large brads. We'll figure out something, and then we'll come back. All right, in another unfortunate sideways twist, this door jamb comes with a groove on the back that apparently is for this metal support that gives it extra strength, but we don't need that. And because we need to trim off a portion of it because it's too wide, it's gonna go right up against this slot. So I had to find a thin piece of hardwood and trim it up so it fits in that groove, and we will kind of glue that in. But obviously you can't find something that size, so and it's really tough to cut something straight. So what I decided to do is just use my belt sander, turn it on, and trim it up so it fits. Trim it up so it fits. So we'll finish that up on both pieces and continue. And of course, it's something else that we have to paint just because. All right, we're making great progress, and I have a bunch of things I want to show you in this portion of the video. First off, we got Bondo put on all of the trim board all the way up, and that's been sanded. But it's really interesting now that we have the stucco molding taken off. I wanted to show you some of the challenges with moisture. And that is, you can see in a lot of these areas where the staples were put in to keep the house wrap on, somehow moisture condensed on those staples and got into the wood. We'll just go up a little bit further. You can see here, and whether that's a crown staple or just a regular staple to hold in the house wrap. As we go up, you can see just about everywhere. Let's take out this staple and take a look at it. That one is actually about the cleanest staple that I've seen on this whole section. Let's see if we can pry that up and you can look underneath it. Yeah, see, there's still a little bit of moisture that gets in there. So you can get really obsessed with house wraps and moisture theory, because if you look at the materials that we had to take out of the teardown, there's this sheet metal flashing that went underneath the threshold, and that whole door and jamb came as a kit. So when that was delivered, or when it was manufactured, you know, they don't know if there's going to be a wood flooring or concrete floor. But with concrete flooring, we just had this pressure treated lumber here, and you know, the rain would come down and collect on the flashing, and as you can see here on the side, this is basically what happened. It seemed like the wood acted like a sponge, and it just kind of soaked up the water that was kind of sitting on this. There's a little flap here in the back to keep the water from going inside the garage, and then in theory it would kind of leak out on this side. But we're not going to put a flashing in. We've got pressure treated lumber here. I painted it, primed it and painted it, and as you can see, it's got the final color on it. And so that's going to be the sub support for our threshold. So we got it painted, looks pretty good. The holes here on the end were covered up by the door jamb, and there was a screw coming up from the bottom here when they manufactured it to keep it attached to the side jambs. So we're just going to put that on top, and it requires a threshold anchor here to attach it to the pressure treated wood. So we're going to have to drill into that, and we'll just duplicate what was in the original. Now, the interesting thing about these sleeve anchors is, and you can see the old one here that's kind of rusted out. Normally these go into concrete, and there's a whole process for doing that. You know, if you look on the back, you basically you know, drill, vacuum, drive it in, and tighten it up by twisting it. But normally these are to attach you know, things to concrete, but we're going into the wood, and you know, so this, I was really shocked after 20 years to find this on the market. You can see it's a standard slotted screwdriver. We'll tighten that up and drill a 1/4 inch hole. So the other thing we're going to do is, first of all, let me show you this pressure treated lumber, because it's really kind of an interesting process. And you can see how the preservative sort of unevenly got inside the pressure treated portion of the lumber. You know, usually when you get algae, moss, and other kind of things that grow on wood when it's moist, it starts to deteriorate. So why was the algae so popular? Because he was a fungi. So you get that fungi on there, and it really deteriorates your wood. But let's take a look at the pressure treating process. There's usually some kind of a preservative, and it's usually some kind of an arsenate, like a copper arsenate. And they take these really super long tubes that are, twice as big as a semi-truck, and they basically open the door, load the wood in, suck the air out, pump in all the preservative, the arsenate, and then they pressurize it. And depending on where the wood is on the pallet, it's kind of unevenly distributed. So that's why I decided to paint. Another thing with the crown molding, you can see here that I'm not going to use a crown stapler gun because I just couldn't find it with the same size, and the money isn't the issue. I just couldn't find one that was what is it, about a 1/2 inch crown molding staple, and I think I'm just going to use these finishing nails. But if you look at the crown, at the stucco molding, it looks okay on top, but when you turn it over, you can see that the wood split. The wood is pretty dry, even though it's probably pine. So what I'm going to end up doing is drilling a 1/16 inch size hole with this bit, and you can see when I drove that finishing nail, there's no split there. So what we're going to do is, when we put in the stucco molding, we'll just drive in nails, probably 3 on the top and 4 or 5 on the side. So last thing on this section, I just wanted to show you, I kind of struggled with getting the Tyvek house wrap tape, but it really isn't it really doesn't allow any vapor to pass through it like this house wrap material. And this one is kind of a it's not felt, but it's some kind of a wax paper, and today the materials probably are a little bit different, but so should I spend 15 bucks on the non-permeable house wrap tape, or I just decided to get this foil tape? It's about the perfect width. We'll probably put it underneath the house wrap, and then we'll use some, it isn't adhesive, but instead of putting more staples in, we'll just probably put some silicone to seal it up. So, again, the construction, I don't know what the construction management theory is on, moisture barriers and trying to keep moisture out, but if moisture gets in there, how does it pass through the house wrap and tape so it doesn't cause problems? So that's where we're at. So we'll get the sill put in with our pressure treated lumber. We'll get the threshold put on top of that with our sleeve anchor, and then we got some backing board here. We'll cut it, we'll put it up against the side, and then we'll start to put in our jambs. Alright, I got out some paint because I want to touch up the threshold after we get it installed, and I wanted to share this really cool tip with you that I learned years ago. Normally when you're painting and you got a really old can, you have some buildup underneath the lid of the can. You always get some rust, and invariably it shows up on the edge of the paint can and falls down into the paint, which is kind of a pain. So if you just get a clear plastic bag and put it inside the can of paint as a liner. And then also, and I did in this case, I have another bag that's lower inside the can that actually touches the paint so that it doesn't dry out. So you lose a little bit of paint. It's not really that much. You can scrape it off with a brush, but those two things will definitely help get you more years out of your paint. All right, with the pressure-treated wood installed as a support for the threshold, we're ready to install it. Now, as I'm going through this process, I really wonder why they didn't just extend the concrete out to the edge so the threshold can be installed and the sleeve anchor can be used to attach it to the location where it needs to be. But they must have required this cutout as part of the building code. So it is what it is. And now, instead of using the sleeve anchor, what I decided to do is use a deck screw. If that wears out, then we'll use a little bit thicker panhead machine screw. So we painted both of these so they match, and we're going to put the panheads on the end and the deck screw in the center here. And because this side is so close to the casing, we need to use a flexible tool so we can get the drill in. So let's go ahead and get that set up. All right, I want to get it measured so it's equal distant on both sides. There's a concrete filler here on this side, so the pressure treated lumber is offset a little bit, but we have to make sure the threshold is right in the middle to make room for the casings on both sides. So it's about an inch or so. Right now, yeah, that's what matter. All right, we're ready to install our jamb on this side of the door, and as you can see, it's fully painted. I had to reduce a side because it was about 1/8 of an inch long, but now it fits really well. We're going to dry fit it here. Going to use a straight edge to make sure that it's square. And originally I had a backing that I thought was going to be needed, but it's too thick, and I would have to sand off about half of that to allow room for the glue to attach it. And we can't use an anchor here on the concrete because it's really not necessary. I'm just going to use liquid nails. And I've got a caulking gun here that's got a spout cutter and what would you call that? A rod to pierce through the end to allow the glue to come out. So that's what we're going to do. All right, it's square on all sides, tilted front to back and up and down. So we'll let that dry. We'll fill in the gaps with Bondo, and you know, then we'll sand it and paint it. All right, we've got some shims on this side that we're going to slide in. We're going to apply some glue so that the original jamb distance from the structural frame is equal all the way up and down, and then we're going to cut to size and shape this other replacement. All right, that dried up really nice overnight. It's very solid. We're going to use some
Bondo wood filler to fill in the gap there. You just put a couple tablespoons on a sheet of cardboard, add the hardener, mix it together. You know, it gives you about 45 seconds to a minute of work time. So we'll fill this in with the spreader, and then we'll prime everything, and this side will be done except for the stucco trim, and we're going to put in some moisture protection there as well. Then we'll move on to the other side. All right, it's about 90 degrees today, and I think I had about 30 seconds of actual work time. So got it on. We'll sand it down. I just wanted to show you, I put this paper towel underneath when we installed it to give it a little bit of height, and I want to pull that out of there. That just shows that the new sill is not touching the ground, so it won't be absorbing any excess water, and it's not touching the threshold at all. So any water that comes on here is going to go straight down. It'll go to the concrete, and hopefully that'll extend the life. All right, we're ready to install the other side piece. Here's a tip: just angle the cut of your fabricated pieces so the water runs away from your framing. And we will not use a backing on this side, just like the other side. We'll put some liquid nails on the back, adjust so it's square up and down, and then we'll fill the gaps with some silicone caulking, and we'll use the wood filler in some of these other places. All right, we'll do that, and then we'll come back. All right, the replacement jamb on the left side was installed. We put some Bondo on the transition, sanded that down, and primed it. And now we're going to put some water barrier protection on both sides and across the header of the door. We're going to apply it over the existing barrier, so it's not going to be lifted up, but I had to put some lower on the doorway where the existing barrier was kind of destroyed when we cut out the sections. And taking a look at the other side, did the same thing, although it only goes from it's about 6 inches or so from here to here, and then a little bit of little strip kind of keeps the old material in place. So the strip itself has a backing on. We just peel that off and then apply that all the way up, just to give us a little bit better protection. So we'll do that, and then we'll come back. All right, we got our water barrier installed, and then the exposed wood was primed before we put on our stucco molding. As is the case with almost every video I shoot, there's a neighbor mowing their lawn, you can hear a leaf blower, I've got to wait, there's a garbage truck or some kind of Amazon delivery truck going by. We're just going to continue. So the next step is going to be to install the stucco molding, and on the top it just goes up underneath the flashing there, and then on the side you can see this, it basically hugs the stucco. And let me flip this around so you can see that. Basically there's that groove that kind of hugs the stucco, so the water isn't going to be able to kind of crawl around that. So we will apply some silicone sealant and then paint that. The exterior here is going to get the house body color accent, and then on the inside we're going to put on a semi-gloss. So you can see the difference there between the primer and the final semi-gloss coat. So we'll take care of that, and we're almost done. Thanks for staying with me. Another beautiful night. All right, we're ready to install the stucco molding. Right now it's a dry fit, and these corners that were perfect 90-degree angles are off just a little bit. We're going to have to make sure those are adjusted as much as possible. Of course, the doorway itself is not completely square, so this wood just has to be wedged in here with some nails. There's a bit of a gap in some places, so we'll use those large brad type nails and adhere it as much as possible. And then we're also going to use this this dap caulking underneath to help the adhesion, and then we'll seal it up. So this side is maybe a little bit less totally square. And I just want to show you at the bottom here, this wood really flares out. It's dry, and but it is moldable. So we'll you know, put that back in the right location, and you know, pre-drill the holes on this side as well. And then we should be pretty good to go. There's some spaces here that we'll fill, and then we'll paint it, and it's coming along. So we'll go to the next step, and then we'll come back. All right, this is a quick shot of the silicone caulking that's going underneath the stucco molding, putting a bead all the way down, and we're just going to wrap up here because that caulking does get stiff pretty quickly, and we need to finish going to the bottom of the wall. All right, we got the nail holes filled with Bondo. Got a little bit messy, but those covered up real nice. The caulking is adhered really well, and the stucco molding is in place. At the bottom here, there is some flaring just to the shape, just because of the shape of the stucco itself. So in order to make a good seal here on the outside, the inside flared out a little bit, so filled that gap, and then we'll continue up the line, and we'll start to paint. All right, we got all the caulking applied and a couple of coats of paint. Because the caulk went over the stucco, we overpainted back onto the stucco molding with a house body paint, and then just painted along the line all the way down and up across the header. So I think it looks pretty good. It's only two things left to do. So let's take off the cover on our door threshold, see how that looks. All right, that looks pretty good on that side. Let's kind of step back a little bit. So overall, that looks pretty good. And now we just have to apply the the molding on the door. This is pretty straightforward. I'm just going to go ahead and use the old molding. You can see the shape there. It's got a little ridge. See if we can get that in focus. It's got a little ridge on it that keeps it in place there on the far right. So let's go ahead and pop that in. And that'll go all the way down. So as this gets put in place, and you can see how quick that is. Thanks for watching. I hope this has helped. Post any questions that you have. Just kind of stepping back and looking at all that we covered. We've got our pressure treated lumber that we painted. We've got the threshold on, and if you look on both sides, you know, that replacement looks really nice. Sanded a little bit too much on this side, so it shortened up the thickness of part of the band there. But overall, kind of going up this side here was a little bit uneven at the corner, but over on the other side, I think it looks pretty darn good. So if you're a do-it-yourselfer like me, I hope this video has really helped.
I feel pretty good about it, and appreciate you staying with me and watching. Post any questions again. Hope you like this video. Take care, and we'll be back with more projects.